Hello, I'm Carson Varner. I'm Dad. I'm also a professor, and I think I like to be in front of people, not hiding behind something. So let me stand out here, as any professor ought to be able to get to the back of a room like this. And let's try to celebrate a little bit about myself on that. I just want to say my mother had perfect pitch. Okay, so I'd like to think I in some way gave that not just to Eric, but our daughter Kaltri, who was viola performance at an earlier time. Now this family always smiles big when I say that, because I don't have any of that in me except in a very recessive gene. I cannot repeat, and so when I say that, I say yes, but. The other thing is, my wife, I'm still working. You've got a crazy dean here who's over whatever, and still working. I'm the same age as your dean, and I'm still going. My wife, a little bit more sense, retired professor, international business, Illinois State University. I'm in business law and international business. Our daughter Katri, again, viola performance, rolled over and is now my colleague, teaching in the same department of business in a somewhat different way. But the two kids grew up in a household that was almost always full of students there. And we had one party after another. The kids loved it because they got to go in the other room and pick out a TV there when the students were there. And you really see that rolling over into Eric. We were at a conference quite recently, and a friend or colleague that we'd known for many, many years won the teaching award and gave a speech. And rather than talking about her philosophy of teaching, she decided to talk about her family history. And among other things, her mother had been a fashion model. And this woman, New York girl, went out 35 years at UCLA, and you just saw that in her. And as she talked about her family history, I felt I knew her better than I ever had over all of these years. So, is this help? I think I'm doing pretty well, actually. On that, and I sort of like to talk loud. That goes with the territory on that. And so let's look at something about Eric and maybe the rest of us. Vander is Eric Vanderveer, and we're very proud of that little name. It goes back about 700 years, and to the town of Varner in the Netherlands. I took the kids there when they were a lot younger, and after being there a little bit, our daughter said, everyone in this town looks like us, and they speak funny German. And I don't think they wanted to hear that in the Netherlands, but maybe something to it. So let's roll on there 700 years back. In the 1600s, Peter Vanderveer immigrated out to Brazil. The Dutch were kicked out, then he went to New Amsterdam in 1659. The Brits came in the next year and changed the name to New York. And we still have family graves from the 1700s in Flatbush in Brooklyn. Coming ahead a little bit there, they came out to the Midwest. They're from, I don't know how well you can see it. I'll put this out later, but here's one of Eric's ancestors. This is Anne Vanderveer, and she's one classy lady. And I was thinking about that, looking at this, and talking with your dean, and saying Eric is really something to help the students get a sense of stage presence there. And her grandsons, there, my father and uncle, my uncle's also Vanderveer, there, said she was over 70 years old. She would walk into a room, and people would turn their heads because of her presence and voice. And I thought, golly, maybe there's something about Eric in there. The next bit of family are the Clarks. This is the Celtic branch of the family. Henry Clark came to the United States 1770, just time to fight the British in the Battle of Monmouth in the Revolutionary War. His nephew was a guy named William Clark, who was the Lewis and Clark Corps of Discovery expedition. But his son only came out as far as Illinois, southeast of Champaign, And there bought a piece of land. It was May 6, 1853, and that is the beginning of what we call Varner Farms. A little adventure next, and that is Alan Varner. Alan Varner was born in Indianapolis, 1825, and when he was 24 years old, 1849. What's going on in the United States at that time? Well, think about a football team in California, 49ers. He went out to California, found some gold. I think he made most of his, not making it, there we go, okay. All the way to the back row. I think he made most of his money trading in goods. Probably a better way than taking your chances with the gold. He came back to Indianapolis and then headed west, came over the Illinois border, and bought some farmland. So again, the beginning of some Varner farms. Later, the Civil War, this was in the 1850s, he came back in the Civil War. He was 25th Illinois Volunteer Infantry and was Captain, Company D. He went by Captain Varner for the rest of his life. He and the father of our Ann Vanderveer here fought at the Battle of Chickamauga there. So Eric has two direct and two collateral defendants at Chickamauga. Then to go on to Caleb. Caleb Woodyard was born in 1853. Not quite sure what he did in the Civil War, but after the war he came into our place southeast of Champaign and spent the rest of his life building up a farming operation. He had 3 kids, and in the course of time the land descended. And all our now distant cousins have sold their land, but we hold on to ours. And Eric has responsibilities for marketing some of the corn and soybeans of that land that we got from Caleb Woodyard. And I do think that's odd. It says a lot about Eric that he gives a bassoon lesson, and then he checks the grain markets to see whether the corn should be sold or has to wait a little bit longer. And I can tell you with a bit of pride this past year, he sold the corn at a higher price than anyone I know on that. So you think, here's this bassoonist doing this and that, but we really have an incredible variety. So we've had a family that's gone out to the world. We have very deep roots in Illinois. As I said, we teach international business, and I'm very proud to say we've worked on the international business program over many years, and it will bear our name, the Carson and Iris Varner Institute of International Business. So in that way, Eric sort of comes along. Now let me close with something that we're going to pass out a little bit, and I think when you look at it, you'll see something there. And this is a diagram of a student's brain, okay? And it was drawn by 12-year-old Eric at that time. And there are 2 diagrams on here, one before Dr. Varner's classes and the other one after. And you'll see what happens after somebody has had Dr. Varner's class. Well, he was thinking about me at the time, but when you look that over, you'll see this is exactly what Eric has done as a teacher, as a professor, and a mentor. Okay, thank you very much. Look for this at the reception. We're having this run off.
Professor, so I will not speak that well. But I think the last time I spoke to a crowd was my bar mitzvah, which was about 33 years ago. So, but I will try. It was very hard to put something or someone I love so much into a short little, 3-page memorial speech, but I'll try. I met Eric over 25 years ago at Interlochen Center for the Arts during its summer program. At first I thought he was shy, but after a few conversations I realized that not only was he not quiet and taciturn, but he had more insights than just about anyone I'd ever met. He was just deliberate and contemplative. He didn't waste words. I love that about him because when we spoke, there were no lies, pretensions, or any cattiness. And consequently, every serious conversation was an honest, enlightening dialogue. We quickly skipped the friendship stages between our first handshake and adopted brothers, and we became pretty much inseparable. This was my good fortune. I always felt Eric brought more to every relationship than he took away. His humility was unprecedented, and as I said before, he wisely chose his words, and he'd offer good objective advice with wisdom he lived by. Eric never made excuses. He worked very well with the students and the rest of the staff at Interlochen. If he needed help, he sought it out rather than ignore the issue. He treated the rest of the staff like family, even those whom he found little in common with. He constantly read. He always had his nose in a book. Could be history, could be literature, could be about farming. It was amazing just how much he knew. It was not a subject we couldn't talk about. I usually was a novice, and I learned a lot. He practiced the bassoon diligently. He helped students practice at Interlochen, even though he wasn't on faculty. In short, at Interlochen, he did an outstanding job and was well respected and well received by the students and by the administration. His own family played a very special role in every facet of his life. After the students went to bed on our nights off, for example, we would go to his family's lake house across from Interlochen and spend time with his parents. We'd play pool, we'd drink a few bourbons, his favorite drink, and, well, frankly, a bit strong for me. Though he said the same about my gin martini, so I guess it's a wash. And we relaxed. The conversations were stimulating, even if we were just arguing about college football. His parents were a part of these evenings, and I grew so fond of, and I loved them very much. I was a bit of a smoker on a side note, and one evening, oh, by the way, I had cigarettes, I forget this generation. And one evening, on his family's dock while I smoked a cigarette, Eric came out and asked me how I could be so smart and stupid simultaneously. I said, I'll stop tomorrow. He said, how about now? He then offered me a magnificent smile, and I tossed it in the lake, sorry about that, and stopped. I remember this partially because he saved my life, but mainly because he didn't accept excuses from others, as he didn't offer any of his own. He never had to. This is not hyperbole, but I am not aware of a time when Eric wasn't righteous or honest. I find sometimes it's easier to lie than to deal with the consequences of pure honesty. I struggle myself, like most people, being honest with myself, being objective, or as objective as one can be. If he did have problems with objectivity, he hid it from everyone, and I just don't think that's possible. His love of his family led Eric to Munheim, Germany, or Munum, as he'd always correct me. I still think he was picking on me. For his master's degree, he traveled and developed strong bonds with many of his relatives. I was very fortunate as we spoke quite often. Sometimes they threw parties in his dorm and he'd give me a call. If he had a little buzz on, he'd blame it on German beer, saying it has a higher concentration of alcohol. I'm not a beer guy, but I'll take him for his word. Apparently, and I'm sad I never observed this, Eric DJ'd these events. I told him that was an impossibility as he knew nothing about pop music, but he claimed to pull it off. Every time he called, I felt honored. We used to, in our own way, very macho, tell each other that we loved and missed each other at the end of each of the calls. It went something like, love you, bud, you too, buddy. But actually, as we got older, we would always finish our phone calls with, I love you. And, that I'll miss never hearing that again. He missed his folks and sister while in Germany. He always spoke of his parents and his sister when we conversed, but he also did the same when he lived in Michigan, Ohio, and Florida. His relationship with his family was quite beautiful. The Varners are a Renaissance family, everything from academics to the arts to farming. I'd never met an actual farmer until Eric, and he took much pride in the work. More importantly, he loved his family's history in farming. He described the process to me not unlike Melville wrote about whaling, meticulously. Again, I felt honored. This pattern was omnipresent. Every time he included me in his life and shared his history and future goals, I felt privileged. He loved people so deeply. His sincerity was undeniable. Eric accomplished in a short time what nearly all of us couldn't accomplish in 10 lifetimes. He was one of the best bassonists in the world. He was a fine teacher. He owned and operated a sheet music company, performed with a wonderful trio, and helped run a farm. He was a great friend to many. He was a great son and brother. He loved his family and friends and his fiancée, Evelyn, the love of his life, as much as anyone could. His capacity to love was endless. He lived life with the knowledge of how precious every moment is. I've only touched the surface of who Eric was, but I hope I provided enough that you all leave here a little more enlightened than when you arrived. What happened to Eric is well beyond the spectrum of how we define tragedy. We need to then give his life the meaning it deserves. We often have epiphanies when tragedies occur. We think how lucky we are to be alive. We promise to make changes, to be more healthy, to love our loved ones even more than before. Then over time it goes away. We fall back into our respective ruts. We complain about the inane. We take out our anger on the people we love the most. We don't work as hard as we can. We simply forget about how every moment we have is a gift. I ask that you take from Eric's life what he stood for: family, hard work, love, humility, intellectual curiosity, and think about what we have lost in his passing. If you wish to be a better person, try to incorporate a little bit of who he was in your own lives. I believe that he would wish for exactly that as a legacy. Thank you.
phases to Eric's life, as you've already heard from his parents, from his best friend. But one meaningful one was his life as a professor. Teaching was very important for Eric, and in his mind, the student's success was his success. He always wanted to encourage them to do better every single day. So I decided to contact some Lynn students, current and alumni, and ask them if they wanted to share with me a story, anything that they would want to share with me about Eric. And I want to share those stories with you today. The first story comes from Sebastian Castellanos. He's a bassoon alumni, and he was one of the first students that Eric has here at Lynn. He also was an intern in the summer of 2015 at Varner Music. This is what he says. As students, we want to absorb as much as we can from our teachers. It was impossible to grow tired of learning from him. I learned about literature, art, music, bassoon, but most importantly, I learned from his impeccable way of doing things, his work ethic, and his capacity to understand anything. I always heard in his mind his "It's okay, Sebastian," followed by a gentle gesture, which up to this day makes me free and see the world differently. He came to visit me all the way to Bogota just to see me performing my new job with the National Orchestra. I will never forget that day. Much love to my dearest teacher and friend. The second story comes from Ala. She's a FLU alumni. I don't want to butcher her last name. But Ala was an intern at Varner Music in the summer of 2016, and this is what she wrote. I met Dr. Varner at Lynn, and he was the only person that I could communicate in German. That was very helpful at the time, as my English wasn't that good. He gave me advice, he supported me, he truly cared. He cared about every single person, and he made us feel we were not alone anymore. He had endless heart, always knew what to say in every situation to give hope and support. It was a pleasure to know him and to learn how great in all aspects of life. He will never be forgotten. Alan. The third story is from Cameron Hughes. He's a clarinet alumni, and he was also an intern in the summer of 2016 at Varner Music. It is difficult to say one thing about Eric Vanderveer. From Eric, I learned that German people have cute little breadboards especially designed for eating sandwiches. I learned that you can don an entire suit of animal costume and still be considered hireable as a university professor. I learned that the bassoon is more than any grandfather from the Peter and the Wolf, but in Eric's hands, it could be a voice that stirs the heart. To know Eric was to be surprised, educated, and respected by a great man, and I think I'll never stop thanking him. Cameron. The next story is from Mark Projak. He's a Trump alumni. Mark currently works for Varner Music, and he's spending a lot of time with me every morning. I have known Eric since he started his career at Lynn University. He was not only my boss at Varner Music, but also my mentor and friend. I would not be where I am today in my life in the United States without his encouragement and support. I appreciated the great combination between personality and professionalism that made it enjoyable to work with him. Mark. The next story is from Erica Anderson. She's a bassoon alumni, and Erica has been extremely helpful, not only organizing this event today, but with Trevco operations. The first time I met Eric was 5 years ago at a bassoon camp. Our first interaction was a heated debate between the two of us as I defended the Baroque bassoon. He wasn't a fan. Little did I know that 2 years later, I would be under his guidance at Lynn Conservatory, transforming me from a reformed saxophonist into a bassoonist I am today. My successes in my career and life are all thanks to his mentorship and friendship. I will never forget the numerous performances that included silly costume and dances with teddy bears, yet musically well-inspired and beautiful. The day sitting at the porch at camp, sipping Venezuelan rum, Nutella bourbon milkshakes, and looking at his later bassoonicorn sketches are among my favorite. He always had bassoon dinners and the adoption of the Figaro screenings at the studio, for the studio and any other woodwind stragglers who wanted to join the fun. The love of Eric has sent a shockwave throughout the entire music community, and he has touched numerous lives throughout the years. I feel very fortunate to have known him for the short amount of time that I did. The last story I have to share is from Fabiola Hoyos. She's a current bassoon student at Lynn. And I remember many times we have plenty conversations via Skype when she was still back in Venezuela between the three of us as I was a translator between Eric and Fabiola. Professor Varner taught me a life lesson, which is, despite the obstacles you will encounter in the journey to reach your dreams, never give up. I've been trying to study at Lynn University for the past 3 years. Due to my limited English, I didn't have the proper score to be accepted. I remember he would try to keep me motivated. He used to tell me, keep your head up. You are almost there. Keep trying. You'll still have an opportunity. I am finally here as a student thanks to his encouragement and support. He always had a solution regardless of the situation. From the bottom of my heart, thanks, Professor Varner. Unlike this, there are many numerous other stories that Eric has as a great professor. Also as a musician, as a businessman, a life partner, was as an amazing human being. I want to personally thank everybody that has shared a story with me or online about Eric. It has definitely been a pleasure reviewing all of them. And also to all the people that have reached out not only to me but to his family for their support during the past couple of weeks. I want to leave you with this final quote, one that perfectly describes Eric's life. And it says, one day you will be just a memory for some people. Do your best to be a good one. Thank you.
Maestoso, a musical term that means to perform in a stately and majestic manner. Of such was the life of Dr. Eric Varner. From the gait of his walk to the voluptuous tone he produced on the bassoon, he was the epitome of elegance, excellence, and charm. With a captivating and imposing calm, he radiated kindness, compassion, and sincerity. It was 5 years ago that the conservatory embarked upon a search for a full-time professor of bassoon. There was an array of applicants, all possessing impressive resumes and letters of recommendation. Amongst these many fine musicians who auditioned stood Eric, who annihilated the competitors after playing just a few notes on his instrument. Not only was I captured by his beauty of sound, but supreme musicianship was an opulent abundance. However, it would be in our one-on-one interview that I would begin to experience the measure of his artistic soul and the integrity of his mentoring spirit. The ensuing years as teacher and mentor to his bassoon students and head of the woodwind department would dramatize and document the powerful impact he would have on his students as their level of performance, artistry, and artistic maturity grew exponentially. Each student received multiple lessons a week, covering a plethora of musical and technical skills. However, his interest in their growth and development was not limited to merely excellence in performance practice, but encompassed everything from the appropriate attire for different occasions, to how to enter the stage, the proper way to bow, and the reception of applause. Clearly well-read and traveled, Eric's contribution to a discussion or community problem was always efficacious and constructive. I was often amazed at the breadth of his knowledge he would share on subjects totally unrelated to music, from his love of medieval history and science fiction to his acumen for languages. He spoke fluent German and was studying Spanish to better enchant his lovely fiancée, Evelyn, and communicate with her family in Venezuela. Having been asked to officiate at their December wedding, I am deeply saddened to instead now be eulogizing my friend and colleague. It is impossible for me to articulate the shock, pain, and loss that Eric's passing represents to me in the conservatory. The only consolation and sentiment that can be salvaged is the truth that as a friend and colleague, my life has been edified. Is the truth that the lives of students have been impacted and imprinted with great artistic, ethical, and professional values. It is the truth that Lynn Conservatory will forever be blessed and illuminated because Eric walked amongst us.
The bassoon is a really versatile instrument. We have a range of over 3.5 octaves. We have this really great bass range. That's the grumpy part. And this really wonderful tenor register we really sing out. But the one thing we don't really get to do as bassoonists is play any jazz. It's not a very hip instrument. Maybe look at it. Looks kind of neurotic. There aren't any jazz bassoon players out there. Maybe there's not a great place to put a mic. Maybe that's why. So I was digging around and I found this piece by Ken Cooper. And other than his name, I've been able to find out absolutely nothing about the composer. Even the publisher told me, yeah, I can't get a hold of him either. I owe him royalties. But this is a really interesting piece, Jazz Suite for bassoon in 5 movements. It's a lot of fun. And as I was practicing this, I kind of thought to myself, well, this kind of sounds like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood level jazz. But then when we got together, the 4 of us, it really took off, and it's actually much better than that. So I hope you enjoy this. It was written in the mid-1980s, and so we're well into the 20th century now on our journey, and we just get to be a little bit hipper than usual.
peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Moon and stars pour their healing light on you. Deep peace of Christ, the light of the world to you. Deep peace of Christ to you. This concludes our service. I would invite you all to come over to the hall across the way